Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 3, Understanding Elements and Parameters. In the last lesson, we learned how to collect elements like walls, doors, and levels. Now let's explore how to interact with element data, especially parameters. This is where most real automation work happens. As before, we load Revit libraries and grab the active document. Then we will collect a few elements to inspect their parameters. Now let's collect a few wall elements. Walls, filtered element, collector, in this document of class as an element we have wall, and we say where element is not element type. To elements. Now let's see the output. Alright, we have retrieved our 4 walls inside our project. We used walls as an example, but you can switch this to other elements like doors or furniture. Now let's read some instance parameters. I'm going to make an empty list. And I'm going to be using for loop command or statement. Now let's retrieve our wall type. Is a built-in parameter, so we write built-in parameter, and we're gonna have element, not category, but type. And since we need them as an string, we say as value string. Now if I say as an output wall type and hit run, we receive our wall type. Now let's get the level as a standard Revit parameter and fire rating as a shared parameter that I have already assigned to the walls. For the level, I'm going to say level underscore ID wall dot level ID, because we are retrieving the level based on its ID. And then we say level from this document get element, which is level ID, and as an attribute we are looking for its name. And I'm going to use if condition if we don't have any level, so we can retrieve NI. Else quote me out NA. For the shared parameter instead, we are going to name it fire rating pram, and instead of get element we use lookup parameter wall lookup parameter, which is fire rating. And we say fire rating from my parameter, which was named as fire rating underscore pram, give me the value as a string, and I'm going to use again the condition format to say if fire underscore rating underscore pram and again fire underscore rating underscore pram that has value, otherwise quote me out again NA. Now we add our values inside the list that we have created before, which was pram underscore data. We append all the values and we use quotation mark type colons. We use curly bracket, as you know already, as a placeholder, type level and fire rating as a shared parameter. Dot format and we look for wall type, level and fire rating. And out of loop we look for our output as a list that was pram underscore data. Now let's save and run. Let's see line 21. One that I append. type level, file rating, dot format. Let's just build it here. Dot format, wall type level, and file rating. So now, as you can see, as a list, we get our type of walls, level, where they are placed, and its attributes as an file rating filled out by EOI 60. Revit elements have parameters, and they can be built in or user defined. Get underscore parameter between parentheses built-in parameter dots. The name of the parameter is used for standard parameter Revit parameters, and lookup parameters with its name is used for custom or shared parameters. Sometimes you want to inspect all parameters of one element. This grabs each parameter's name and value. As value strings gives a formatted string rather than the raw number. Now let's say element as a name, walls, and we grab the very first wall. And we name it all parameter or params. And since we need them as a list, we look for a square bracket and we say parameter definition dot name as an attribute. That's how you get the name of the parameter. Since we need a callings, we add a callings as an string, and we need our values as an string. So we say parameter dot as value string, and I'm going to use for loop command again for parameter in elements dot parameters, and as an output we retrieve all params. Now let's hit run. As you can see, as a list we have all the parameters and their values inside it. Now let's start modify a parameter for the first wall. Since we are making some changes inside Revit, we need to have it inside the transaction. So first of all, we need to import transaction manager. In this line, I'm going to say from Revit services dot transactions import transaction manager. Alright, now here, since we have collected all the walls, we need to select the very first one. So we say wall from the walls, and let's select the very first one. We name our parameter as a mark param, and we use lookup parameter with the name Mark. Now, since we are making some changes inside Revit, we need it to be inside the transaction. So we have to say transaction manager dot instances dot ensure in transaction in this document, and we say if mark param then set this mark param to a value like, let's say, Python test. That's not what I was looking for actually. And we need to close the transaction by saying transaction manager dot instance dot transaction task done. And as an output, we can code that parameter mark updated, of course inside quotation mark because we need it as a string. And now let's hit run. If I go back to Revit and select wall, as you can see, one of these walls has a parameter filled out with Python test. What if we want to modify a parameter for all the walls? So let me clear this a little bit. We don't need these lines here. We of course need transactions, and as an output we need another one, and inside the transactions we say we need to iterate through each wall and set the mark parameter, right? So we say for I in wall in enumerate and as an attribute walls mark param. Let's look for the parameters using lookup parameter, lookup method, I'm sorry. And look for mark parameter. And again we say if mark param and not mark param that is read only. This line basically is saying that as a conditional format, that if it's not a read-only parameter, then execute the next line. we say mark param dot set as always. I don't want this one. Set within quotation mark Python underscore test, and we're going to say basically set mark value, for example Python underscore test underscore 1, 2, etc. Right? We need to format it, so we say format I plus 1. Now we close the transaction with this line, and as an output we are going to say parameter mark updated for the placeholders, walls, and dots formatted len as an attribute walls. Now with this part here, we replace placeholders with the value returned by len walls. No? And this one here is saying that it returns the number of wall elements in the wall list. Now let's save and run. Let me see the 14 and 48. If mark underscore param is read only, of course we forget the colons here. And if I select my walls one by one, as you can see, we filled out the parameter mark by Python underscore test 1, 2, 3, 4. However, I wrote the Python here by mistake. Let me correct this one. Alright, now it is corrected. To recap this session, I would like to mention two things. To change a parameter, we must wrap it in a transaction. Revit doesn't allow modifications outside one. We use ensure in transaction before the change and transaction task done after that. In Python, the curly brackets inside a string are used with the .format method to insert values into a string. This is part of a string formatting. You now know how to read instance parameters, get all parameters from any element, write to parameters using transactions. In the next lesson, we'll focus on managing types and families, like switching the type of an element or placing new family instances into the model.